Sally, it was looking a little fractious previously when we visited you between rival supporters. How's it now?
Yeah, it's still very heated, Gillian. We go through moments of hearing a lot of shouting and then it calms down. We're at one of those calm moments at the moment, but a few minutes ago, people were shouting outside the door there, stop the count. You can see covers on the windows there. They were put up a short time ago by officials because they viewed this crowd outside the entrance to the counting hall as a disturbance to what was going on inside. And the crowd outside is angry. There's also another similar crowd at the entrance upstairs, which accesses the building. Now, these people, one official told me, are poll watchers, poll challengers, as they're known here, and they like to observe the counting to check for any wrongdoing. Now, there's anger here because they believe that they should be allowed in. Officials say there are already enough poll watchers in the counting hall, and so they are not allowed access. Now, that has resulted in quite a lot of tension outside and a significant amount of tension inside too. Of course, people here are doing an important job. The polls only closed last night. There's still counting to do here. And we've seen at least 3 people thrown out by police since we arrived over intimidation of poll counters, either for standing too close or for saying unwelcome comments to them. Now, 95% of the votes have been counted already in Michigan, and Joe Biden is already showing quite a clear lead. He has a lead of around 61,000 votes here. Now, this is significant. And I understand you have breaking news, so I'm going to throw back to you.
Let's take you back now to Sally Lockwood in Detroit, in Michigan, and that projection there coming in for Joe Biden, Sally.
Yeah, I mean, we did see that coming, didn't we? Because Joe Biden had a significant lead, and of course the remaining votes that were to be counted are in areas that favour the Democrats. Of course, Donald Trump took Michigan in 2016 by such a tiny margin of fewer than 11,000 votes that to see Joe Biden with this lead of more than 60,000 votes, we could see that he had it in his grasp to take Michigan, which of course now is so important in his path to power with Michigan and Wisconsin. He no longer needs Pennsylvania to make it to the White House. Now, there's been a lot of tension here in the last few hours. There's quite a heated group outside the entrance hall to the counting area. Now, let me just introduce Matthew Seeley, who's a poll challenger for the Republican Party. Thank you so much for speaking to us, Matthew. Now, hopefully, Matthew can help make sense of this, because there's this crowd outside this door and then another one upstairs. They seem quite upset about not being allowed in. Can you help me understand why?
Well, the rules state that both parties and the independent parties are allowed to have representatives, one at each table, count table, and then poll challengers at each table. And then we have lawyers and people that act as supervisors during this process. We have about a quarter of the people that we need to be able to be represented at each county station. And unfortunately, the way the rules work in Michigan is that if they complete the count before we have the opportunity to challenge some of the irregularities that we are seeing, basically the count is considered done, and then we go into a recount mode. Once we go into a recount mode, we can't change the original count of those particular precincts.
Okay, so just to explain to the viewers here, so Matthew is what is called a poll challenger, and the people waiting outside trying to get in, who are getting quite upset, are also poll challengers, and they essentially come in to observe the counting, that everything is being done properly.
Right.
Now, what are you hearing about the number of people that are being allowed access? Because as I understand it, there are representatives from all parties here observing the counting.
Well, the Democratic Party has actually more people than they need on the floor right now. Independents have, I'd say, about 25% of what they could have.
Right.
And Republicans have about 25% of what they could have.
So as you understand it, there aren't enough Republican poll challengers here to observe the counting?
Well, I mean, it's not as I understand it, it's a fact.
Are they being counted as they come in?
basically they've locked the doors and they're not allowing more people to come in. So that's why they are upset and they're out there protesting, because they should be given the same access as everyone else, and they're not.
And now we've also seen at least 3 people being escorted out by police in the time that we've been here over accusations of intimidation
Right.
to poll counters. What have you seen in that regard?
I just think that, again, it's another tactic by the Democrats. They go and we had a lawyer ejected. They said he took off his mask. He never did. And that he was a threat for COVID. They had another person ejected because they said that they were disrupting the process by challenging a ballot that basically was based on the date of birth. The person was over 100 years old, but their date of registration would have put them at 21 years old. So something was irregular with the dating. So there's all kinds of things like that going on. And if we're not allowed to take a closer look at these irregularities, we're never going to be able to verify whether the count is authentic or not.
So just lastly, what is your reaction to the fact that Michigan has now been called for Joe Biden?
I don't believe it has been called, but
We're projecting it will be a Joe Biden
I mean, that's
win.
your projection, but I mean, last night going into this, President Trump had a 300,000 vote lead. So I'm watching them manufacture a lead, and you know, we'd like to see our people in here to verify that this is an authentic vote.
Okay, Matthew, thank you so much for your
Thank
time
you.
today. I really appreciate it.
Okay.
Donald Trump has, the Trump campaign has filed a lawsuit in Michigan in the last few hours contesting the fact that they don't believe they've had full access to observe the counting here in Michigan. And let's see how that goes and where that goes. I mean, Joe Biden does have a significant lead here in comparison with the margin that Donald Trump had in 2016, but certainly very fractious here. Joe Biden, we heard, calling for unity a few moments ago. Well, here we are feeling anything but.
The way it's interpreted by the Democrat crooked machine of Philadelphia is that the observers can be 20 or 30 feet away, never able to see the ballot itself, never able to see if it was properly postmarked, properly addressed, properly signed on the outside. All the things that often lead to disqualification of ballots or make it very easy to dump 50,000 totally fraudulent ballots because they're not observed. This went on for 20 hours. While all of you thought there was some kind of legitimate count going on here in Philadelphia, it was totally illegitimate. So we went back to court, and we went before a Democrat judge. No need to tell you what the result in Philadelphia is if you're before a Democrat judge. Obviously a political hack who doesn't know the meaning of the word observe. Observe means to be able to look. Not a single Republican has been able to look at any one of these mail ballots. They could be from Mars, as far as we're concerned, or they could be from the Democratic National Committee. Joe Biden could have voted 50 times, as far as we know, or 5,000 times. The ballots could be from Camden. Philadelphia, unfortunately, and I would say this about my own city, has a reputation for voter fraud. You have a reputation for dead people voting, and we're going to go look at just how many dead people voted here. I didn't think we'd have to do that, but we will. And you have a reputation for people being bussed in from Camden voting here. Wouldn't be the first time that happened. But this goes way beyond any of that. And let me also add that this isn't happening just here. We have exactly the same lawsuit in Wisconsin, where exactly the same thing happened. Except in Wisconsin, mysteriously at 4 o'clock or 3 o'clock in the morning, about 120,000 ballots appeared. Oh, here come these ballots. Well, we have no idea if they really are ballots. We have no idea if they're signed, if they're postmarked properly, if it isn't just the same person who submitted 100,000 ballots, and they all got counted. This is the way they intend to win. Now I'm informed by former Congressman Sweeney, who's been going around the country and collecting this information, that similar situation in Arizona, similar situation in Nevada, and a similar situation, what am I missing, John? Where are you? In Michigan, in Detroit, Michigan. Again, let me be specific what it is. This whole new thing that never happened before in our country, these mail-in ballots, which has been a cause of real concern for everyone because they can easily be fraudulent. Well, one of the things that the law attaches to that is the right for both parties to observe the ballot, the way we do with absentee ballots. You make certain it's properly signed. On the outside, there's a signature. You make sure that it's properly postmarked. You make sure that it's properly addressed, and then you pass on it. A number of these are often challenged by the Democrat representative or the Republican representative. We never got a chance to look at a single one of them. The gentleman here who did this for us says about 100,000 ballots went through that process in the 20-plus hours in which they wasted his time by not allowing him to see a single ballot. Well, that's 120,000 ballots that should just be taken out of the count. So you want to look at that number, that 120,000 should come out. And this is an area in which Biden is getting 60, 70% of the vote. I don't know if this is going on any other place, but it is going on in with enough frequency in Wisconsin that we've brought suit, and now we'll have to look into 3 other places. What it says to me is this is a concerted effort of the crooks that run the Democrat Party. And you know these big city machines are crooked. You know that. 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, 100 years of one-party rule leads to corruption of all kinds. Voter fraud is one of the biggest because that's how you keep your power. But we're not going to let them get away with it. They're not going to steal this election. This election gets decided by the people. These people, the elite, they don't care about the people. The people are the deplorables, the chumps. They're not important. To President Trump, he's the whole reason that he ran for office. And he's the whole reason for which he's carrying on this campaign, so that your vote can mean something, so that your vote doesn't get wiped out by 100,000 fraudulent, meaningless paper ballots that no one gets to observe. So we are going to continue the lawsuit here. We're going to bring a second one, and then we're going to bring a federal lawsuit. And we're going to take a very good look at whether we bring this nationally. We certainly are going to bring it here and in Wisconsin. Quite possibly, we'll do a national lawsuit and really expose the corruption of the Democrat Party. But this is beyond anything I've ever seen before. This comes when you think you have so much power and you own the media that you can do anything you want. Well, sorry, we're going to fight for the people. We're going to vindicate their right. And the ultimate result is President Trump has won Pennsylvania. I've never heard of a count where you're ahead by 400,000 with 80+% counted, and they haven't called it for you yet. They called California the moment the polls closed. How many votes do you have to be ahead to win, for a Republican to win here? How many votes do we have to be ahead? 400,000 is not enough? With 80+% counted, I think there's only 14% of the vote to go. Do you think we're stupid? You think we're fools? You know something? The Democrats do think you're stupid, and they do think you're fools, and that's why you get called deplorable and chumps. It's over. We're going to stick with this. We're going to win this election. We've actually won it. Just a matter of counting the votes fairly. So I'd like to ask the former Attorney General of Florida, Pam Bondi, to explain what's been going on at the polling places, which is just as dastardly and just as criminal.
Good evening, everyone. And as Eric Trump said, we are thrilled to have won Pennsylvania with 87% of the vote in, and we're up almost 400,000 votes. So we're thrilled. And you ask, well, why do we care about the rest of the votes? Because it is about the integrity of this election. And every vote, as Mayor Giuliani said, in every state must be counted fairly. What we have seen, and we have a video of it that we will release to you, they put up, it looks like a police barricade all the way around the perimeter, and they are keeping our poll watchers back approximately 30 feet, at least 30 feet. You can judge for yourselves. They would not let them look any further. There is a gentleman there by the name of Seth Bluestein, who is an assistant to a city commissioner, and he is wearing a badge the size of a baseball. And as far as I know, he's not a sworn law enforcement officer. So it looks like intimidation to me, with a police barricade and a man wearing a huge badge around his neck. He told them they can't come any closer. He said the reason was because of they can't interfere with the process, and then something about COVID. Well, we all know at the polls, you have to stay 6 feet apart. Our poll watchers have no problem with staying 6 feet away. Yet they weren't allowed to do this. So we're going to release that video to you because then they also had binoculars. Our poll watchers brought out a pair of binoculars. They were shut down on the binoculars, but then they were told, well, okay, you can use the binoculars. So that's a concession that we are allowed to observe the ballots. Yet clearly when you see how big the room is, you cannot see every ballot. You can only see with the binoculars the ones that are closest to you. So that's a concession by them, and they're still not letting us see this. So we need to fix this. We need to remedy this now because we've won Pennsylvania, and we want every vote to be counted in a fair way.